From deeply unsettling weaponized violence to unwanted sexual advances mid-match, WWE won't allow you to watch these moves on their platform, but that won't change the fact that they most definitely happened. I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 WWE wrestling moves you're no longer allowed to see. Number 10, Randy Orton gets twisted with Jeff Hardy, Hell in a Cell 2018. 2018 was a bit of a funny time for WWE's resident apex predator. Following on from an uninspiring first ever United States Championship run for the star, Randy Orton would transition back into his legend killer persona, eyeing up Jeff Hardy as his first unfortunate victim. But the former world champion wasn't content with merely sneak attacking the charismatic enigma. Randy opted to target Jeff's massively stretched earlobe for sugar honey iced teas and giggles. And by giggles, I mean highly audible winces and groans from fans in attendance, taking things up a few disturbing notches by the time they met inside of the Hell in a Cell structure at the titular event. Orton would jam a screwdriver into Hardy's earlobe before slowly twisting it like the diabolical savage he is. Clearly feeling this act was a touch more graphic than they were initially expecting, when Orton and Hardy likely pitched the grisly spot, WWE have since strategically shifted the camera angle of the move from the originally zoomed-in shot of Hardy being twisted to a visual which is now massively blocked out by the bright red structure's beams, which is likely for the best if you wish to keep your dinner down whilst watching. Number 9, Mark Henry can't get his steps in, Raw 2014. With the likes of Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley, and many of the other dinosaurs currently taking up the WWE landscape, lifting and chucking around steel steps as though they're made out of wafers, it is sometimes easy to forget just how difficult to maneuver these hulking objects can be. But acting as a painful reminder of this sometimes hazardous endeavor, Mark Henry once found himself becoming the butt of the jokes at a Liverpool edition of Monday Night Raw back in 2014, as the world's strongest man attempted to launch the steel item into the ring in his match against Dolph Ziggler. Those in attendance were treated to the sight of the formidable Titan getting his head stuck in the object before shoving it under the bottom rope. The sound of joyous cheers as the sarcastic British audience lapped up the botch has since gone missing on the WWE network, however, with a cheeky edit being made to showcase what appeared to be a hazard-free incorporating of the steps on the night. But we all saw what you did, Mac. Number 8, Aleister Black doesn't connect, NXT TakeOver Chicago 2. Though many an NXT fan would have you believe that just about anything Triple H and the gang touched throughout the glorious period of 2014 to 2021 turned to black and gold, the often critically acclaimed darling of WWE still had its fair share of mishaps over the years. And one such mistake has since been craftily cut from existence, coming during an unexpectedly fun showdown between the two now former WWE stars Lars Sullivan and Aleister Black over the latter's NXT Championship at TakeOver Chicago 2. The champ's usually devastating black mass spinning heel kick wasn't quite as effective as he'd had hoped, but instead of thinking on his feet and attempting to make some magic out of Black's missed foot missile, Sullivan hilariously crumbled to the ground due to the wind seemingly knocking him clean off his feet. Sensing that this laughable misfire would likely take the shine off of an otherwise decent outing, WWE would proceed to edit the footage for future showcases of the match in a way that utilized a different camera angle to make it look like Black fully connected with the shot. Number 7, Randy Orton changes his mind mid-chair attack, New Year's Revolution 2007. It's not exactly a secret that Randy Orton has a bad habit of listening to the voices in his head on occasion, but on one rather surreal evening, the legend killer ultimately decided to backtrack on the urge to follow through with one of his infamous impulses, making for one of the strangest turns of events you're ever likely to see. Well, that's if you could actually revisit it, of course. As Triple H and Shawn Michaels went to war with Edge and Orton at New Year's Revolution 2007, the game found himself once again nursing a shredded quad, forcing an audible from the two teams. And it was in this moment when the Apex Predator decided to enter the fray with a steel chair, only to bizarrely back out of the beatdown at the last minute. Completely sliced out of the match on the WWE Network and subsequent recaps, the camera noticeably zooms in on the King of Kings, and the audio goes from electric to subdued as Orton's attempt to end the bout in a no contest is chopped out of the scenario in place of HBK going on a Madden. Numerous chair shots to the head though, yeah, that's apparently all fine and dandy. Number 6, Charlotte Flair flips off the crowd, Money in the Bank 2021. While WWE were all too happy to capitalize on the Queen's antics when it came time to promote her blood feud showdown with Becky Lynch at Survivor Series, her prior decisions to go off script in the thick of a bout recently were clearly less well received internally. Flair did produce a gesture at last year's Money in the Bank pay-per-view during her bout against Raw Women's Champion Rhea Ripley. That was arguably more jaw-dropping than anything else on show in the admittedly excellent showcase, as the crowd demanded the arrival arrival of an at-that-time absent Becky Lynch, Flair clearly lost her composure and took great pleasure in flipping the bird to all of the returning WWE Live fans. We missed you. WWE did try to black out this middle finger on the night itself, though rather unsuccessfully. However, the gesture has since been scrubbed from the match on the WWE Network, with an extended shot of a tickled Ripley's face taking its place instead. Number 5, Ultimo Dragon goes for a tumble, WrestleMania 20. It cannot be understated just how effective a brilliant entrance can be for a performer. Should you not be able to put one foot in front of the other without tumbling on your ass, however, you can very quickly come across like an absolute tit. And in a clear attempt to paper over these hilariously botched entrance moves, a number of subtle edits have been laced into the WWE Network's versions of a few high-profile failures. Ultimo Dragon's swift slip and slide en route to his Cruiserweight Open appearance at WrestleMania 20 has been strategically reframed from a distance to keep his fall out of view. Goldberg, typically firing himself up past the point of staying on his feet at SummerSlam 2003, is now cut away from in favor of a shot of the crowd. And despite it actually being used in a Raw storyline later down the road, Mandy Rose's unfortunate weather-induced ramp slip at Mania 37 has also been swept under the carpet as Ruby Riot's mug takes up the frame instead. Number 4, Roddy Piper and Bad News Brown go to war, WrestleMania 6. He may be lauded as one of the most important and influential performers the wrestling business has ever seen, but that still doesn't change the fact that one Roddy Piper performance in particular has aged incredibly badly since its initial outing back in April 1990. Painting himself half black for his contest against African-American star Bad News Brown, Piper's promo and subsequent match with Brown that was met with understandable backlash was quickly given the boot from the network when Peacock arrived on the scene in 2021. So the sight of Hot Rod moving around the ring, the rivals clubbing and beating each other all over the canvas, and Bad News eventually being hurled into an exposed steel turnbuckle at the 6th ever show of shows, all with Piper decked out in his ill-thought-out and highly offensive body paint, has now been seemingly banished from the WWE landscape for good. Number 3, Mickie James gets a handful of Trish, WrestleMania 22. Proving to be one of the most captivating pieces of storytelling on offer coming into the 22nd edition of WWE's biggest show of the year, fans around the world were all bracing themselves for what was to come when it pertained to the war that was set to play out between Mickie James and Trish Stratus. But with James's deranged and obsessive character bringing more than a few questionable and intrusive moments into play over the course of the program itself, it was only natural to assume that the challenger would have something big up her sleeve for the night of the epic showdown itself. Sure enough, James would reverse a Stratus faction attempt by grabbing hold of, well, the champion's nether regions. And while WWE have remarkably kept the lewd reversal tactic in their footage of the match on the WWE Network, they weren't so kind to Mickie's decision to lick her hands in a V gesture shortly after. Again, cutting to the crowd once this shocking visual comes into play in the match today, those dirty buggers looking for James reveling in her reversal will no doubt be forced to look elsewhere. Number 2, Ric Flair locks lips with the Man, Royal Rumble 2016. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why WWE have distanced themselves as far as humanly possible away from Ric Flair, and in particular one dodgy moment involving one of their now biggest stars in recent times. With Flair being in the headlines for all the wrong reasons on the back of the Dark Side of the Ring's Plane Ride from Hell documentary, shining more light on allegations made against the Nature Boy on the back of that infamous event, it isn't a massive shock to see that Ric's unsettling interaction with Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble 2016 has long since been erased from the network. In a beat that sees the now social media rivals colliding during the Man's match with Flair's daughter Charlotte at the event, Ric plants an unwanted smooch on Lynch's lips, to the sound of a shocked crowd in an attempt to gain the Queen an advantage. It's not difficult to see why this moment has been thoroughly rejigged and buried by WWE in the years since Charlotte's successful defense of the Divas Championship. So here's hoping we're never put through these sort of uncomfortable Nature Boy antics ever again. Number 1, Edge and Christian's Concerto is no more. No Mercy 2001. In light of WWE's many controversial issues over the years when it comes to their performers being on the receiving end of multiple concussions, it stood to reason that Peacock would push the company to continue washing away some of the more graphic occurrences of head trauma seen throughout the promotion's extreme history. And while there are still a notable amount of seriously gruesome chair shots to the head on full display on the network, an eagle-eyed fan on Reddit has already spotted a piece of Peacock headshot editing. According to user Morgan0, no, that is not my Reddit handle, a watch of a recent 20 matches that define the Intercontinental title special brought with it a brief pause in the picture as Edge smashed old pal Christian on the back of his head with a concerto during their brutal ladder match at No Mercy 2001. With Christian ultimately being forced to retire for an extended spell due to the sheer amount of concussions he'd endured over the years, perhaps Peacock felt it best to scrubber move that likely didn't help his head trauma. They may want to have a word with the rated R superstar when it comes to his frequent use of the move in recent times, too. Really likes those concertos, doesn't he? And that's our list of any other WWE wrestling moves you're no longer allowed to see. Let me know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that old subscribe button while you're at it. Also, make sure to head on over to whatculture.com if you're into this kind of thing and find more articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I've been Gareth, as always, from What Culture Wrestling. Thank you for clicking on this video today, and I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.